New York Jets star wide receiver Garrett Wilson meets and speaks with the media amid speculation of a future trade demand. And some more details come out regarding the New York Jets and John Madden football. I'm Glenn Naughton with JetNation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Apologies in advance for some echo. I'm at work in a very large empty room, so apologies for that in advance. Joined by Dylan Terman. Dylan was able to chime in earlier when I went live. I went live because I didn't know if we were going to get to do this, but I'm glad we did because again we've got the Garrett Wilson comments which are worth talking about, and this has been a lot of fun watching the Jets get clowned by the entire sports world on Twitter over the past few hours because their video game usage. Dylan, how are we doing?
I mean, I thought when I got called a Madden casual on Twitter a couple weeks ago that I just brushed it off and it was no problem. But to find out that the Jets are some Madden casuals is kind of weird. I don't know, 17-year-olds, 19-year-olds, however old they are, they're running the team now. You can see the title, who's actually running things at One Jets Drive. We don't know anymore. It's all up for interpretation at this point. What do we have? 4 wins on the season, 5 athletic articles to break down. So I don't know what else to say anymore. It's choose your own adventure, choose your own narrative. If you want to believe 100% of everything that's written, sure, then that's your path. If you want to choose 0%, that's fine too. But I said last time, 35 to 45%, maybe just under half. And that's what I think here too. The stuff is a little embellished, a little bit true, a lot of true. And then there's some stuff that's just all right, you're contradicting yourself now. Now we're changing the stories up a little bit. So it all depends wherever you want to take it from, but it's not a good look no matter what. And whoever's running this thing, obviously the Johnsons, however many of them, Dick, Tom, or Harry, as they used to say. I mean, it's it doesn't matter who it is. They're not getting it right. And until they get it right, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I think the funny thing was, we've talked about The Athletic, all the articles they've done and what can we believe and what can we not. And today, this story breaks that, and for anyone who's just finding out about this now, which I'm sure there are not many folks who haven't heard, the Jets have had meetings where they've discussed player acquisitions, and Woody Johnson has chimed in with his concerns about their Madden ratings. We shouldn't trade for this guy because he's got a low overall. Obviously they signed John Simpson, but apparently Woody had some concerns because the people at Madden thought his awareness was not quite high enough. So that concerned Woody. I can't believe I'm saying these words. This is I'm in an alternate universe where this is so far from sane. But as I was saying, Dylan, we've talked a lot about the articles The Athletic has put out this year, and dating back to last year's Senior Bowl. This was the one. This is what makes it so strange. This was the one that I didn't even read the whole article. I read it. Someone tweeted about it, and I thought, if this is true, I'm going to go live in a few minutes because this is when I had woken up and sort of settled in this morning, afternoon UK time. And I thought to myself, I'm going to log in and do a show in a minute, and I'm going to rip The Athletic because they have now done a piece that is so far from being believable that I don't have to worry about whether or not it's true. I know it's false because no NFL team would do that. Oh, however, of all the stories they've written this year about the Jets, this is the one the Jets confirmed. This is the one the Jets have a spokesperson talk to them and say, yeah, we use the don't worry, Jets fan. It's not the main way that we determine whether or not we're going to acquire players, but it is a part of the process. And it looks like there was the comment from Brian Costello or the tweet from Costello that we talked about, Dylan, where, it seems the Jets think it's okay as long as they explain to the beat writers and say, hey, get the message out there that it's only part of the process. That's still not good. There is no way to justify this. There is no way to make it okay. There is no it's only X percent. I said this earlier, any percent is too much percent. It's and Beloved Peace says it sounds ridiculous. It does. And it's even more ridiculous that the Jets confirmed it. So of all if you made a list of every single thing The Athletic has said about the Jets over the past couple of years, this thing would be top of the list for dumbest, craziest, least believable, and the Jets confirmed it. So we can talk about what's believable and what's not, but we know the least believable thing is true. So this is where we are. Every time you think this team can't do something dumber, they do stuff like this. So here we are. And I talked about this earlier, Dylan. When Samini reported this a couple weeks ago, that one of Woody's kids was deeply involved in the operations of the team, I believed it because Rich Samini, and I don't want to go over too much of what I said earlier, but to me, you're risking your credentials at that point. You tell the world that the owner's kid is helping run the team, and if that wasn't true, you would be out. You would be gone. And not only is he not out and gone and still has his credentials, there wasn't even a rebuttal. It wasn't refuted by the team. They were like, yeah, it's out there. That's cool. So there was, in my mind, just looking at it as a fan, looking at someone in a professional environment with Samini and a multi-billion-dollar organization and the damage that report could do, the fact they said nothing, that told me it was true. Now they've confirmed it's true. So it's I don't know how much wilder or incompetent things can get, but that's where we are. It's completely insane. As I said, the nuttiest, wildest, craziest story confirmed by the team to be true. I don't know what else we can say.
Yeah. So in the article specifically, it says the age of his sons in 2017 were 11 and 9, which would make them 18 and 16 currently. And then it talks about them being in meetings in the facility, their father's involvement on social media, sharing posts, citing articles, and they quoted Jets X Factor, which is Nania's team, which they do a great job. And then it says, when we're discussing things, you'll hear Woody cite something that Brick or Jack read online, and that's being weighed equally against whatever opinion someone else in the department has. And then I answer to a teenager quote from Joe Douglas. Then they reference Judy in Madden and John Simpson in Madden. And then they go on to say, like you said, it's used as a reference point, but not determinative based on the Suns' online observations. So whether it's Madden, whether it's, sources like Jet X Factor or PFF even, or anything, like if this article said they only use PFF grades like Woody Johnson, like sure, it makes it more relevant, but still it's the same premise. It's like, why are you using this like fictitious number? It's like, I don't know, it's like credit score to me. Like we're just like fake numbers that we're all just like attached to that acquire status. Like Madden rating is the worst of the ones to use, obviously, but it's like, I don't know, you just shake your head because it's embarrassing. And I've said, and I put it in our group chat, not to defend any of them, but they're not the only organization that does this. Jeff Lurie and his son, Julian, who's 10 years older than Brick, obviously, and that's a huge factor, but he's part of their team. I think he's like business ops, football ops, like head of that department. I don't know how long he's been on the team, with the team making decisions. I'm going to assume he wasn't skipping mathematics class to come sit in on meetings at One Jets Drive, but like it happens around the league. Owners are going to have the next in line come in and do this. To this degree, that's just silly. Like it's stupid. And I've quoted it back like 2021 about Zach Wilson. And I've talked about it publicly, privately with my friends, with you guys. Like I thought they picked Zach Wilson based on Brick's love of him. He would not stop posting him on Twitter that year. It was like highly circulated, whether it was his on-field stuff, his political stuff at the time, because we had just come out of the election and whatnot. But like, it didn't matter what the affiliation was. It felt like Brick wanted Zach. Not saying Zach was eventually forced on everybody, but I speculated at the time if it was true. It seems like everybody wanted Zach. Joe, Saleh, Woody, Brick. It seemed like everybody wanted Zach, obviously. And then a lot of teams, when they were polled, would have taken Zach. So like, it's not a matter of who wanted Zach more. It's just, you could go all the way back to that moment and you could start speculating from that moment on. And I feel like ever since I joined this podcast in 2021, I started writing for JetNation in 2019. That's always been on the forefront of my mind, is like, we'll never get to the bottom of it, but how much does this owner actually meddle? Now we're getting details on how much he meddles. And it's, quite frankly, it's just embarrassing. And to my summation of the whole thing is just hire better people. Not saying Joe Douglas was the worst thing we're ever going to get. He's not the best thing we're ever going to get. I think there's better out there. We need better coaching for sure, but my biggest issue is the whole staff is just depleted right now. We don't have any analytics. We don't have any player performance. Our personnel staff is a joke. Like, we don't have anybody. Our cupboards are barren. We fired 5 coaches. We got rid of 2 or 3 executives and kind of just replaced them in-house. Not saying those guys weren't deserving of promotions. They probably are, but like, we just need a better. Somebody called into the Jake Asman show, I believe, earlier today and broke down like 5 different teams, 3 that are in the playoffs, the Jets and the Panthers, and just how many bodies they have in these departments and coaching staffs. The Jets were in like the mid-20s in both. And like the Ravens had 40 coaches. 40 coaches. That's unheard of. The Jets have like 13, it feels like, compared to that. Like,
it feels like too many. You can have like every
I know,
guy.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Sure.
Yeah.
They had like 36 front office members and we have 24. It's like, we need more bodies. We need more people like that. We don't need the Iras and the Jaimes and the Bricks and the Jacks of the world making these decisions. You know, I think we need more, like, a full rounded out staff. And I think that's my biggest issue with the whole thing is like, he got completely, I don't know, cheap in a part of the football game where there is no salary cap, is the coaching in the front office. You can spend as much as you want. Like, what is it? The Carolina Panthers are paying Matt Rule still, I'm sure, you know, and that happened 4 years ago, it felt like. So that's my biggest issue. And obviously the involvement, the locker room shit, which we can get into, is a joke too.
Yeah. You know, we talked about the you know, Jeffrey Lurie's kid. To me, that is 2 different worlds. Again, I don't know how old the guy was when he started going in the locker room, but, you know, to me, him giving his 27-year-old son a position with the team isn't, you know, that wouldn't worry me. I mean, it's nepotism, but look, he's got the right to do that. He owns it. If I owned a business and wanted to give it to my kids, that's my business. No pun intended. But, you know, for a 17-year-old to be, it's just, I don't know. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. Like, there's nothing embarrassing about giving your kid a position at 27 years old to try to, you know, learn the ropes because he's going to take over one day. To have him contributing to major decisions at 17 years old, 2 different worlds in my mind. But, you know, It is what it is. And the problem is all of this stems from ownership. So we can say they need to do this, that, and the other, but it's not like there's going to be a new owner tomorrow and he's going to do the right things. And Woody, you know, I've always said Woody's. I don't even think it's a cheap thing, honestly, because I mean,
no.
when your payroll is 180 million, these front office, you know, yeah, the GM and the head coach, different story. But when you're talking about like analytics and guys like that, they're not making millions. You hire 10 of those guys for, you know, $1 million. It's not like, you know, it's such a drop in the bucket that I don't even think that's it. I think they're doing a bad job.
I just don't think he cares to do it. I just don't think he cares to employ the amount of people. And like I've always said, like I've questioned the facilities and what they're giving the players as far as resources. And apparently I've been, you know, pushed back on by people that know way more than I do, that apparently they have better resources inside the facility that the players can use. Like I know the VR headsets are the big thing, and like learning quarterback that way is like cool for the young quarterbacks. But like, I just want to see an advancement in this team. Is like, let's just get into the 2020s, you know, like it's 2024 and we're living like it's 1997. And I understand some things worked for us in 1997 that might work for us now, but like, we got to advance our team and catch up with the rest of the league.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know, they have a lot of things they want to catch up with the rest of the league. And I just don't see it happening. I don't, you know, like I said, I think we're going to see another first time rookie head coach. I think there's a good chance we'll get an experienced GM, which I like, but it'll be another rookie head coach sort of learning his way. And even if it takes the rookie head coach a couple of years to get it, then that's the point at which you're looking at dealing some of your best young players or extending. They will have done enough losing by then. They may just want to go, which brings us to Garrett Wilson. Spoke about it earlier, Dylan. Spoke about it last week. Retweeted you a few weeks ago when you sent out that tweet saying you hope they re-sign him, which I agree with. But I retweeted it and said I'll be surprised if they don't deal him. Rich Cimini mentioned the other day that he's heard from people close to Wilson that he will be requesting a trade this offseason. People pushing back against that. Conspiracy, it's clickbait, it's this, that, the other.
Well, they didn't say
and within an hour or two.
Trade.
What's that?
They said they think he will request a trade. They didn't say he will.
No, yeah, they said they expect him to. I believe was the word he used. So not that
he said think. He said think. He didn't even say expect. He said,
Okay, and even that's enough for me because as I've said, I've been saying for over a year now, look how miserable this guy is after every loss. He has got to be the unhappiest person in the building because he treats every loss like it's the Super Bowl. He looks so miserable, and all they do is keep losing, and that's all he's known since getting here is losing. So from a competitive standpoint, he's been miserable for 3 years. So I said over a year ago, if this doesn't get better, I could see him demanding a trade. And within a couple of hours of me coming off the air, maybe even been within the hour, Garrett Wilson meets the media. The media asks Garrett Wilson, hey, you want to come back next year? Garrett Wilson basically says, I don't know. Let's finish this season and go from there. Now listen, what I like to do, and I've done this before, Dylan, I feel like when you're talking about the relationship between a team and a player, I think people sometimes, because they don't want it to be true, they're willing to be like, oh, well, maybe he didn't mean this, maybe he didn't mean that. So what do I always say? Equate it to a real relationship. Imagine you're dating somebody and you say to that person, we good as a couple, you want to stay together? And they go, let's finish this movie and talk about it after that. You're going to look at you're like, wow, this is my girlfriend. And she's, if there's a pause or anything other than yes, then that girl you're watching that movie with, who you've been on a couple of dates with, she doesn't want to go out on another date. And here's Garrett Wilson being asked, do you want to be a Jet next year? And he's like, I don't know. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. That's a no. But he's trying to do the right thing and not be like, yeah, I want out of here. I want to go. This place sucks. He's not going to do that. I think he's a pro. I don't think he's going to handle it the way Jamal Adams did, because we know what a disaster that was and what a diva he was. But Garrett Wilson says today, I don't know if I want to be here.
I think it was a lot of pro talk for show me the money. Truthfully, I think that's what it comes down to, because if he immediately said, yes, this is where I want to be. I love the Jets. I can't wait to continue my career here, which he eventually got to say, yes, I'd be blessed if that's what they wanted to do. This is the first team that ever took a chance on me. Then he's putting himself in a box of like, okay, now I'm not going to probably get the top dollar because I've just said that I love this team, and now it's almost hometown discounting.
It's not like the agent's going to be like, oh, my guy said he likes it here. Now I got to give you $5 million off. Like the agent, that's the agent going to bat. Players can say, I love this, I love that.
I don't know. Part of the question is the part that like is irrelevant to me, because like if I was asked that question, like it is a hypothetical with 3 games left in the season, I wouldn't know how to respond to it immediately either. So like if he just replaced that with 5 seconds of silence, I think the same message would obviously not be covered the same way it is. All that's aggregated is the first 2 seconds of that. I don't know. But then it's like, no, it'd be a blessing, and the team took a chance on me. If the new GM came in and gave him a 9-figure offer, he's probably taking it. That's my opinion on it. I think he would take it, especially knowing that he's going to be a captain. The son of the owner specifically gave a game ball to him after their only win in however many weeks, stepping over Rodgers, stepping over Ulbrich and his father to give Garrett Wilson a game ball. I don't know.
And
Garrett Wilson,
and so
paid and staying as a Jet.
Here's my counter to that. He would get that same money with a good team. Like, why would he have to stay
if the new GM
New
came
York
in and
lose?
traded Garrett Wilson, especially to a team in the AFC, he's not the GM for this team.
Well, I mean, that's, they're probably going to get a guy who's not the GM for this team. But
Either way,
so.
There's so many quality. Thomas Dimitroff is qualified. I think he's a great fit.
Okay, and maybe he trades him. Maybe, and right, that's the part of it. Maybe a new GM looks at this and says, I'd rather have 2 or 3 more top 100 picks and not have to worry about paying Garrett Wilson $35 million and if I believe in myself and I'm a good GM, I think I'm going to get 2 starters and a backup with those 3 picks, and I'm going to kick the can down the road on having to pay that big money, because I don't know about you, Dylan. We haven't talked about this. I expect a big bounce back year from Sauce next year, and I think Sauce is going to get his money. So I don't know how many guys you can keep around. If you're keeping Devontae around at $38 million or whatever his number is, I don't know how many guys you can have around on the roster at 30, 40 million. If you have a chance to move one of them and add 3 premium picks, that some GMs just are that confident. Like, oh yeah,
you're probably getting a better return on Sauce. This is just speculative, but you probably get a better return on Sauce than you would on Garrett, in my opinion.
Right now?
No, if they played out next year as well, obviously, like you said, if Sauce bounces back to form, you already
Okay.
have 2 All-Pros under your belt. Garrett, I think, has maybe a Pro Bowl alternate. Not saying that that's the only determining factor, but, like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think Sauce is regarded higher than Garrett is. I know teams covet offense, but, like, if I'm looking at a player getting the Jamal Adams package, it's Sauce. It's not Garrett.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it, to me. That's debatable. They're both great.
Like, I
They're
would give
both at
Garrett the
their.
Brandon Ayuk contract and not bat an eye. 3 for
But that's
120
the
or
thing.
4
That
for
was last
120
year.
and
Like every new deal has to top the last big
No,
deal.
no,
So
it
I don't think the
doesn't. No, it
IU
doesn't.
contract
Amon
is
Ra
enough.
got paid, and he wasn't the highest paid at the time. He was like the 3rd
And
highest.
slot guys though, slot guys don't tend to make as
Garrett
much.
plays a lot in the slot. Not saying he is a
He,
slot
he
guy,
plays a
but
lot, but he plays outside too. Either
yeah,
way, he's going to get a boatload of money. And
sure.
I think if he could get a boatload to win, he'd rather get a boatload to win than take a boatload to lose. But we'll find out. We'll find out this offseason.
Yeah,
We'll find out who the GM is.
right.
And maybe the GM will be Jim Nagy.
Hey, I'm for it. Why not? We see him. I see him once a year for the past 3 years doing his thing, hands on, boots on the ground at the Senior Bowl, and I'm going again for my 4th time. So, I mean, it'd be cool. I think it's like it's a great person to hire because one, you've talked to 32 teams, you've talked to 32 executives, probably a lot of their pro personnel and scouting departments as well. Like, these guys at this point, you've developed
Great
relationships.
relationships.
Not the candidates, the prospects coming in firsthand. How many of these guys speak so highly of Jim and like thank him personally? And he's taking pictures with every prospect and their families after the games and after practices and this and that. So Jim is very highly involved in like player interaction. And I think that's a huge part of it. Not saying the Jets lack that, but I don't think that that's something that we have excelled at. So like, I think that's just a different perspective. And that goes to show just part of the net that they're casting. Obviously, Dimitrov with his analytics background, former GM background, we have a current, current former director of Senior Bowl in Phil Savage. So like they're going to get a younger opinion of the successor to him in Jim Nagy. And I guess like, I don't know, I don't hate it as somebody who goes to the Senior Bowl every year and like sees what he does kind of like up close and personal. I think it'd be a great fit, maybe not as like the full GM, but as like a top executive in a scouting department at the very worst, or assistant GM or something like that. I would love a hire like Jim Nagy.
Yeah, I think it's not surprising he came in. I recently re-listened to an episode of With the First Pick with Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson when they had Jim Nagy on, and they had some funny stories about when Jim and Rick ran into each other. They had a great story about showing up to watch Ben Roethlisberger in a bowl game, and the press box was so full that Nagy and Spielman were sitting on top of the press box in the snow outside. And I think Spielman said he left after the first quarter. He said he'd seen enough. And Nagy had to hang around because he was a lower level guy. But enjoyed that story. And yeah, I would like Nagy. Like I said, I like Dimitrov. I said earlier, my favorite candidate of the bunch. And they're gonna interview a ton of guys. We'll see who they bring in. But it's right now, I think for look, news cycle stuff goes quick. Maybe it dies out in a day or two. But I think the primary concern today of Jets fans is who is running the thing. And they are absolutely. I mean, look, they're going to be a laughing stock. I'm glad there's only a couple games left because this is going to be a constant source of embarrassment for this team to do what they're doing. But this team knows embarrassment a lot better than they know winning. I don't know that it bothers them because they've gotten so used to it. But it's an ugly situation. And to me, there's no, I said earlier, I'm not really in the mood to be as charitable with this team as I usually am because they've been so bad at so many things over the last couple of years. And now this is just one more layer of stupid that you wonder how much can you pile on. And they're like, it's like forever hold my beer and watch the next one.
Like we can get a guy in as a GM and I think specifically head coach, like we talked about last week. I think that's the more important hire. You can mitigate the shortcomings of a GM if you have really good coaching and obviously better play on the field. But yeah, it's tough to say you have hope and feel really confident about that hope. It's more just like hope with some really wobbly legs on a chair. It's like you're just hope you don't lean back too far or move too fast for the chair to just fall out, because that's kind of what we've seen as the Jets, like the last 5 years, at least the last 2, is like expectations, the bottom just falls out. And like you want to get excited about all these things, you just can't get excited when stuff like this is coming out, and kids that are not even, through college or making decisions about a team that you've grown up watching since, as far back as 60s and 70s, some of these fans go. It's just kind of like you said, it's embarrassing, and there's no justification for it anymore. It's just, you got to start winning. That's the only way. That's literally the only way that people stop talking about it. I didn't even know that Jeff's son was part of the Eagles organization until this was all brought up about Woody. So it's like, he was able to not cover it up, but he was able to like not get as much scrutiny for it because they were winning and they're a consistent winner and a perennial playoff team, or at least every other year they're contending. So I don't know. I don't see why we can't get back to that. From 2000 to 2010, this team was in the playoffs more than it wasn't, it felt like. So if we could get back to that, which same owner during those days, I think that would be a lot better.
Yeah, I think I don't know. We'll see what they do. I have no faith or confidence, but I'll still watch and cheer and be miserable over being a fan of this team. But the topic, probably the topic that would be our number one tonight, if not for Madden Gate, is the play of quarterback Aaron Rodgers, the possibility of a Rodgers return after this year. He was asked I know we talked about this, Dylan. I did that video the other day where I said I don't see any way he comes back without a significant pay cut. He said yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, all options would be on the table. And it seems he would be considering another pay cut to come back to the Jets. And there are a lot of fans who say there's no way, you can't bring him back. Don't do it. Huge mistake. And I get all that. I understand the concerns. I understand the injury concerns. I get all the worries. And I completely understand people who say you can't bring him back. But as I've pointed out, and there is a very good, I won't even say I would say a better than 90% chance he will be the best quarterback available to play for the Jets next season. Sam Darnold is going to be a free agent, and he ain't coming back here. He's not coming back to this circus. He's going to go somewhere else that needs a quarterback that has nice weather and owners that aren't insane and things like that. Darnold isn't coming back. Tyrod Taylor, if he plays, is giving you 5 or 6 games before he lands on IR. He's 35 years old. He stays healthy he does a worse job of staying on the field than Aaron Rodgers does at 41. So I see a lot of people calling for Tyrod Taylor. Great. You want him for 5 games? You have him. Then what? What are you doing after that? So without Darnold, and they're going to, I believe they'll win at least one more game. They will not be in position to pick a quarterback. Their options will be Aaron Rodgers or who?
Somebody in the comments just said I'd want to be entertained, forget about winning, go after Justin Fields. He would be entertaining to watch. All right. 3 years ago, Glenn and I sat up here for many months and argued about Zach Wilson versus Justin Fields. I was on the side of Fields, and I'm saying right now, I don't want that. I don't want that. If I could have Aaron Rodgers next year or Justin Fields as my quarterback, I don't need to see the next 3 games to know that it's Aaron Rodgers. Like I don't, and anybody, and I get it. Like the pay cut has to happen. Obviously he said he's open to it, but we would need to see the pay cut, obviously. And then he also said he would mentor a young quarterback and say he would fight like hell on the field to keep the young person on the bench, which all things you want to hear from a quarterback that like, you're not sure if you want to keep around. And I know there's a lot of people on Twitter that literally quote tweeted that, that clip off I think it was SNY or wherever it was outletted from, and we're like, oh yeah, you can't trust a word he says. I don't know if he's ever blatantly, just other than the whole vaccine thing, like I don't think he's ever sat there and like said I want to do this and then did the opposite, like to that extent. And we saw, I mean, you haven't seen the Enigma stuff, I saw part of it, but like there's a huge clip about him and Jordan Love, and his mentorship of him and how he wanted to do things better than Brett. And he has. And Jordan Love looks good. Jordan Love looks like Brett Favre, but he also looks like Aaron Rodgers. If you put on a Packers game for like 2 quarters, you will see some
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers type throws from Jordan Love. You
Yep.
don't get that. And Brett Favre did the whole, well, he could just watch me and learn by watching me. Jordan didn't do that. Jordan learned by, getting in the mind of Rodgers, saying that he paused film and said, this is what I'm thinking here on this play. Like, there's a lot of pieces of his brain that are part Aaron Rodgers, and that's a great thing for his development. So if you were able, and again, it didn't work out with Zach Wilson, but if you have something like that in place where he has a guy, why wouldn't you trust him? He takes a pay cut of like 20 million or whatever. I know he took 35 before, but like whatever, however many million, that helps the cap hit in the future as well. Maybe, it lessens it by 15 or 10 million or whatever. It just makes it easier if you have that guy in the pipeline. But we never have a pipeline coach. We don't have a pipeline quarterback. We don't have anything like that really to get hopeful for. And that's the part that really discourages me, is like, we thought we had the guy in Mike LaFleur with the backup plan of Calabrese, and that's what we were sold. And obviously it just fell apart. But like, we don't even have the guy to be the next guy at any position. And that's what you need. And if he's going to be a part of it, I'm totally for it.
Yeah, I think Beloved Peace says, what about Kirk Cousins? I mean, Cousins right now is a disaster.
Man.
He's thrown one touchdown in his last, 8 games, 9 games?
You want a guy who's thrown one touchdown and 9 interceptions in his last 6 games, compared to Rodgers, who in his last 7 has thrown 13 touchdowns and 1 interception. I'm not saying that's how you feel, Beloved, but I think that's some sentiment around Twitter, is like Kirk Cousins is the better option. No way. And I tweeted 3 weeks ago that I want Jameis, if it, reunion with Todd Monken. Then Jameis played against the Broncos, who are on TV right now, and then he gave the Lord deliver me from the pick sixes line, and I'm like, dude, I can't have this. And then somebody said it perfectly.
It's
Jameis
like
is great if he's not your quarterback.
I think Jameis has kind of figured out he can stay in the news if he says wild, silly stuff, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, and then he still got benched.
Yeah, but people are talking about him.
Exactly.
So he's
got
figured out, if
stuff,
I give these really quirky interviews where I stare up at the sky and thank God 25 times, like, people are going to retweet that. So yeah, it's not I said the same thing a few weeks ago. If you're going to get Monken, then fine, bring in Jameis with him. I think took me about a week to get off that train. Like, no, yeah. I don't think.
And I know we disagree on this part of it with the coaching, but my top pick, I think, has like kind of swayed from Monken to now Vrabel. And I think part of that is like the influence of Vrabel saying, no, I can win with this team as established. You retool, you don't rebuild. I think that's going to be a huge triggering talking point for a lot of Jets fans this year. Is it's not a rebuild, it's a retool. But I think Vrabel is somebody who would come in and say, no, we're going to compete in 2025. And even if we scratch and claw our way with a hobbled 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers into the playoffs, this is what we're going to do first. And then you just, like I said, you got to hope that they have the pipeline quarterback in place, whether it's in the draft or a young guy who's on his second team in the NFL. Is like, I'm not saying Will Levis, but I'm saying, somebody in that age range. I don't know who's currently available, or like, whatever, but something like that, or a mid-round quarterback. And then you sell the dream of the pipeline of like, Aaron Rodgers is going to be here for one more season. You hopefully you get 17 more games out of Rodgers, and then the guy never has to play. And then if you make it to the playoffs, great. If not, Rodgers is gone and you transition into the new guy.
Yeah, we'll see. Micro Fox says he wants Rodgers to retire. I don't think that's
a lot of
happen.
people do. A lot of people do.
But especially,
it seems like he wants to play.
It does, but you can't deny that, especially the last couple of weeks. And this is actually a good conversation to have, Dylan. I'm glad it went this way, because I did want to mention this, because I'm big on, like, if I'm wrong about something, I'll say I'm wrong about something.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair at this point, based on the last couple of weeks. And this isn't saying Aaron Rodgers wasn't terrible for most of this year, or at least nowhere near as good as what you would expect. Did we, and by we I mean primarily me, but lots of other Jets fans, did we expect too much too quickly from him? And if we did, I think the answer to that is yes. But I also don't think it's entirely unfair, based on the fact that, and I fully believe, if you read Ian O'Connor's book, the Aaron Rodgers book, and the quotes from his trainer, like I do believe if they'd won, what was it, the Christmas game or whatever, or the game before, he was going to come back and play. And in my mind, if you injured yourself Q1, week 1, and spent all year rehabbing and got to the point where you were going to play late in the year, I would expect you to be like 90% by the time week 1 rolls around this year. And maybe he just wasn't. And maybe he needed 8 or 9 or 10 weeks of running around to feel comfortable, because there's no one in their right mind who could tell me that this past week he didn't run around better than he has all year. And so I'm looking at him and thinking, if I was wrong, if I was wrong to expect too much, fine. But if not for all the promise of I'll be back this year, from last season, I probably wouldn't have expected as much this year. But in my mind, it was like, well, if he was going to be back for week 14, he'll certainly be ready to roll week 1. Well, you know what? We never saw him week 14. It might have been a freaking disaster. He might have been hopping around on one leg back there. So just because he was going to play doesn't mean he was going to be effective.
I think the Enigma. Sorry, I was going to say I think the Enigma documentary kind of sheds some light into that, because he's talking with his doctors, and they were like, "Oh, okay, in 1 week he wanted to be back with the team, and then in 3 weeks he wanted to be activated off of IR." And like he was saying this in like October about his plans for Christmas time, and the doctors were even pushing back, and he's like, I didn't ask a question. He's like, I'm telling you what I'm doing. So like you said, I think he accelerated his rehab to the best that he could, and he was never going to come back. He was probably going to come back like whatever the percentage of Aaron Rodgers is that a normal thinking Jets fan, not a Zach truther, whatever percentage of Rodgers that's better than Zach Wilson, whether it's like 65% or 70% of Aaron Rodgers is better than 100% of Zach Wilson, whatever that percentage was, Rodgers was just trying to get to that number. And he's always said it. He's like, me at 75 is probably better than your backup at 100. And if we got Rodgers for 3 games in the state that he was in, midway of this season where he was hobbling around, maybe we do make the playoffs. Like maybe that version of the team does make the playoffs, the way the defense was rallying and the special teams was firing and everything was working except for the offense at moments, and especially Zach Wilson at times. So like, I don't know. There's just so much hypothetical of what to go into. I think we expected exactly what we should have expected from Rodgers in 2023 when he said the trophy was lonely and that it's Super Bowl or bust, like Micro Fox said in the comments. Yeah, it was last year. This year, maybe we did expect just a hair bit too much coming off the Achilles, and maybe the Niners game and the Titans game, which we obviously still ended up winning, and he led a fourth quarter drive. I think that was the rust coming off the Achilles. And then we saw the Patriots game. He was really good. And the Broncos game, he was really good, obviously, moving wise, like his mobility wise, he was very good getting out of the pocket. He had 40-something rushing yards. He couldn't, generate a ton of offense, the rain and the very good Broncos defense, obviously. But like then he was hurt. So we saw the healthy part of Rodgers like we're seeing these last 2 weeks. And now it's like, oh, damn, if we had, even a part of that for 3 or 4 more games this year, the whole season looks completely different. So that's the part where it's like we didn't expect too much last year, but now maybe off the Achilles, and then with all the injuries now, like his hamstring was partially torn off the bone, it sounds like. So like that's a lot for a 40-year-old, 41-year-old quarterback to be dealing with and hobbling around with. So I don't know. It's a tough way to evaluate.
And this is something we'll all be wondering for years, right? Wonder how last year would have gone if he hadn't gotten injured. That was probably our best shot. It probably was. And it's, look,
I literally think it was week 1 against the Bears. Rodgers injured his ankle in the first or second quarter, and the Bears were winning 17-0. He threw a pick 6, and it was in Chicago. The Bears were rallying. The fans were going nuts. It was week 1. It was like, I think it was like Matt Nagy's first year as coach or something, a couple years back. Aaron goes to the locker room, gets the test. He's fine. The whole Perk Rodgers moniker comes about, and he plays out of his mind in the second half. And the Packers come back and win the game on a huge Randall Cobb 75-yard slant route that he just takes to the house. And if that's what happened last year, and he just hurt his ankle and like whatever, it was a sprain, and he was hobbled for a couple weeks, like we said, Zach for 2 or 3, 2.5 games, 10 quarters maybe, like we're fine. Zach for 17, I'm cursing. We're 40 minutes in. We're fucked with Zach for 17 games. So like that's where we're at. It's unfortunate, but
and that's why Not to go too in depth on it, but it's I've even made a wisecrack. Well, not a wisecrack. I put out a poll, and I didn't give a position. That the question was preposterous, but some people were taking the preposterous answer. That's why I don't like the oversimplification in any case of you are what your record says you are. Because if you take that and run with it, then okay, then Zach was better than Aaron Rodgers. Because when we boil it down and we don't want to have conversations about nuance and why they are where they are and why what's happened has happened, then you're left with things like Joe Burrow is a 500 quarterback. Why not offer the Bengals a third-round pick for him? He is what his record says he is. For his career, he's 3 or 4 years over 500. Well, yeah, that shouldn't take much to get in trade. There's a term I heard years ago that I really liked, and it applies to things like you are what your record says you are, or says you are. It is what it is. What do they call them? Thought eliminating cliches. Like, I just want a cliche that makes it so I don't have to think about things.
Sure.
So when someone presents this player, I'm just going to say, you are what your record says. Yeah, but it's Joe Burrow. He's like MVP level. Don't get you.
He's playing at MVP level right now. Yeah.
He plays 3 games, and he's under 500. He is what his record says he is. What's his record? What is he? 5-9? Well, he sucks then, right? Yeah. Like, no. Sometimes you're way better than your record says you are, but sometimes stuff just happens. So yeah, not a big fan of the thought eliminating cliches. Like, let me come up with a few words I can string together that mean I don't have to have a thought process or form an argument. Beloved Peace says here, and we've talked about this. He says he thinks the Jets are closer than people think. From a talent standpoint, I would agree, but they don't have a coach right now. And as I said, I assume it's going to be a rookie. And really, if we go through the list, how many rookie coaches have won a Super Bowl? Is probably 1 or 2. And
I don't know,
how much longer is
Did
Aaron
McVay
Rodgers
do it? No, that wasn't his first year.
What's that?
I thought McVay did it, but it was like
he was really good though.
Yeah, it was his 3rd year. He's so young that like every year he's the youngest guy to do it. That I just think it was like his first year.
Yeah, but he
do you like rookie? Sorry, do you definitely think they're going to take a rookie coach, or do you think just like most of the retread hires are going to like go elsewhere, and the Jets are going to be like left with the first time hires?
Well, yeah, I think it's it is what he always does, and I said earlier or yesterday, whenever, and I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn is the highest profile, most qualified guy who's going to want to be here, who the fans are going to love the idea. Well, not all the fans, because a lot of us want an offensive guy. It could be Vrabel, but Vrabel is going to be in demand.
He said he was open to it.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that he's open to it. But if other teams come calling who are in a better situation, if he likes to, coaches look at things. They're no different than players. Like, if I can go to a place where I'm going to get taxed, if I'm going to lose $800,000 of my salary on taxes by going to the Jets, or I can go to a team in a no tax or low tax state like Tennessee. Why not do that? Not that I think Tennessee will have an opening, but you get my point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
no,
I think of all the
candidates, if they did, I would love to have what was it, Brian Callahan, after the quote he gave to the reporter the other day. Dude,
that was fantastic, wasn't it?
Fire me up. Give me a coach like that who will push back and not somebody pushed back on me when I quote tweeted that and said, give me a coach that says this shit about their team. And they're like, what do you mean? Saleh and Ulbrich defend their players all the time. I'm like, no. If Saleh was asked exact question, he would have said, that's a fair question, Kaz, but I don't think we're soft. We have the right process. He would try
I disagree with that assessment.
Dude, and then like the Vrabel answer that's going around about when he lost, he's like, because it fucking sucks, Gentry. He's like, that's why. I feel bad for the players. They bust their tail. I'm like, what do we have? Why don't we have this? Like, that's what we need. And I'm not saying it has to be Vrabel, but like somebody of that mind. I think Aaron Glenn could do that. I think that. I don't think a Ben Johnson or a Joe Brady or a Liam Cohen would do that. Maybe they're a great offensive mind, sure, but like, I don't think they're doing that. I think you need to find somebody who's like the closest mentality of a Parcells, and I know that's very hard. He's a Hall of Famer, and you can't have a copy of Parcells, whatever, but like something closer to that than, like you're saying, the first time I'm kind of going to slow play this. That's a fair question, Kaz kind of coach.
That's one thing that's driven me nuts with Ulbrich. I like Ulbrich. He's a nice enough guy and all that. But anytime he gets a question about a guy, he has to do, before he answers the question, he's got to do 5 minutes on what a great guy he is and how amazing his work ethic is.
Disclaimers
Nobody
everywhere.
works harder than him. Everybody in the building loves him. He goes to the toy drives. I saw him helping the janitor take a trash out the other day. Like, dude, get to the end. What's the substance here? But again, part of it is like guys today, you do see it a lot more. They need that. Well, maybe they don't need it, but guys want that coddling. They want that,
the
like,
softer coaching.
hey,
Sure.
You better say like 15 nice things about me before you say maybe I'm not the greatest ever. And I forget which day it was. I rarely watch the pressers because there's never substance. But I had one on a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, dude, every single answer starts with we love that guy. He's so fantastic. He's
it's
so
exactly
amazing.
what
Everyone in the building loves
we have here. Like, no, it's not. Like, you're blatantly lying to us now, and you're calling us stupid if you're going to tell me that Hassan Reddick, the past 3 or 4 seasons in Philadelphia and his other stops,
he's given us exactly what we expected.
Is the exact same thing you have now. Get the hell out of here, dude. And like, you're a former player.
We don't have leads. You have 3rd and longs.
Yeah.
You don't have leads. You have 3rd and 9.
He's not caught up with what we do.
Passing situation.
He's not caught up with what we do. Whose fault is that?
Don't
stick up for the guy.
Here's the problem. Here's the biggest problem with a potential Aaron Glenn hire. I'll have to say this though, because it just happened again. Every time someone says something in the chat about Glenn, I think they're talking about me.
They're not impressed with your defense.
I'm impressed with Glenn's defense. I'm like, I wasn't defending myself. I'm just having a conversation, Micro Fox. Whatever. And then I thought, oh, Aaron Glenn. It's happened a few times already. I think Glenn would be great. I'm like, at what? I'm just going to do a podcast. Anyway, we got to roll. I got to roll. I got to run. Glad you were able to hop on. Yeah, see, Scott, he's not sure about Glenn. I don't know about Glenn either.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I've never been sure about
that. Aaron Glenn, from here forward, will have to be referred to as Aaron Glenn in the chat. What we're going to assume we're talking about me. We got to roll, Jets fans. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully they get this mess fixed up in the near future.